Welcome to our channel, where we are building a 50-foot sailboat from scratch. We're a bit over a year into the build, and the hull is starting to get ready to be turned over. Right now we are fairing and sanding the hull so that it will look completely smooth when she's in the water. The kitchen garden project is moving on, and this Sunday we got the poles in the ground which will hold up the paling. We used an earth drill to dig the holes, but to get as far down as we wanted, we used the old flagpole for extra momentum. These poles used to hold up the animal fencing that covered most of our lot when we moved in. The chestnut paling will surround the kitchen garden to protect it from deer roaming around. I think the paling is beautiful, and it will last for many, many years.
So, end of last week, I did a lot of sanding out here, and we're getting pretty close now on the starboard side of the hull. I have used the Longboard a lot, halfway down on this side, and I've been using a guide coat, as you can see. That's why you have these black spots on the hull now, and that's the low spots that are left. So what I will do now is to wipe off this graphite powder in the low spots, and hopefully these pencil lines that I had drawn will stay, so I know where the low areas are. And then I will fill these areas locally with some more fairing, and then when that has cured, it's time to go over this surface once more with the Longboard. And hopefully once I have sanded that, we're pretty close to a surface that is finished or ready for the base coat. And once the base coat is on, that will fill any pinholes and really small irregularities in the surface, and then you can sand on that surface again if needed. The big disc sander that I've been using has saved us a ton of time on this. And I know a lot of people has been skeptical, oh, you can't use a flat surface to make a hull like this fair. But that's actually not the case, because it depends on how you move that disc. Of course, you can't stay with it in one place, because then you will create a flat spot. But if you keep moving it all the time and never stand still, it really helps to take down the high spots and take care of most of the sanding. So you can just use the Longboard for the last, let's say, 30% of the sanding. I don't have an exact number, but my feeling for this is that disc saves us roughly 70% of the time I would have spent with the longboard otherwise. A lot of people have commented and asked why don't we use a wall sander, something like this. And this is okay to cover large surfaces pretty quickly. But for this, like I said, you need to keep moving. And I found that using that type of machine, you don't have the same control because the sanding head is too far from you. And also the weight of the machine is heavier than the polish machine together with that big disc. So of course the downside with that is that we get a lot of dust in here because there's no dust extraction on the polish machine with that big disc. And that's something you have on the wall sander. So I like this machine, but for this it's not the right tool. And also the discs on these are really soft, and that's not something that I like when you're just using it for taking down the high spots, because this will ride more down into the low spots, and that's not something you want when you're trying to get the fair surface. So it will be a long week with a lot of sanding, and the plan for this week is to get both sides of the hull ready for base coat. And I know that's a pretty ambitious goal, but that's my aim, and then we'll see how far I can get. And one thing we haven't done yet is the bottom part of the hull. I mean, we have gone pretty far up on the hull with fairing, but we still have the bottom part left. So that's something that I will probably start with late this week, maybe beginning next, to put on the first layers of fairing up there. Yeah, and obviously the top sides are a lot more important than down below the waterline. We're not racing, so it's plenty enough if the hull is fair. If there's some smaller irregularities below the waterline, I think that's okay. Since we're not having a high gloss paint system under the waterline, it doesn't matter because you won't see it the same way as you do on the top side. The top sides are what really needs to be flawless if you want to have a nice looking boat with a high gloss paint system on it.
Before Johan could start fairing the patches, he finished sanding the rest of the hull.
Another day of glorious sanding, like Mats say on Sail Life. I spent, 30 some hours just sanding this side with the longboard and the big disc sander, but I'm really pleased with the result. And the guide coat is really revealing. It tells you directly if you have a low spot. And a lot of these low spots, you can't see them. Even with the low angle light, when you turn off the lights in the roof and you put the light along the hull, it looks really fair and nice now. So maybe I'm overdoing it if I'm filling these low spots, or most of them, because it looks really good the way it is. But it's hard to tell because the hull isn't glossy now, and once you get the glossy top coat on it, it's a different story. So I think I will fill them all and then go over this whole side one more time with the longboard, just to be sure. It will be a lot easier doing that now than to change my mind later on once the hull is flipped over. Yeah, and as you can imagine, it's a lot of work fairing a 50-foot hull on your own like this. But I have to say, it's I kind of like it. It's like you go there with the longboard. It's kind of meditative work. You just have some nice music, and you just work. You don't have to think much. You just it's just hard work, but at least you can have your mind on something else and just listen to podcasts and music and just let the hours fly by. So it's a new week and time for some more sanding. Last week was quite productive, I think. I managed to get this far on the port side of the hull with the longboard. So this portion of the hull now is ready for another layer of fairing, but in patches this time. So the plan for today is to finish the rest of the hull here. And then tomorrow, or maybe the day after that, I hope I can start longboarding the starboard side of the hull to see how it turns out after I have sanded down those patches of fairing that I added last week. Hopefully, the end result will be a truly fair hull, ready for some base coat. But that's all in theory so far, so we'll have to see. I'm on the final stretch now on the starboard side after the patching. So I started in the front and I have a few meters left. And this is as far as we will go now, because we're only putting on a base coat now. before we're turning the hull, because otherwise there will be scuff marks and we have to tie together the deck with the hull later on, and then we have to sand and fare more. So just a base coat for now, and then the hull will sit for quite some time, and that's good because even if this is epoxy fairing, there is a slight chance that some of it will shrink a little bit, and it's nice to address that before we put any base or top coat on. So now the hull has some time on the fairing, has some time to settle, and then maybe 2 years, 3 years from now, when we're doing the top coat, we will have a better surface to start with that is more settled, and also that the epoxy in the hull has the chance to really fully cure over that time. I've been at this now for, this is the 3rd week. So 3 full weeks of sanding and fairing. Actually a bit more. It's actually 4 weeks. This is the 4th week, so sanding and fairing. It's been pretty hard with all that longboarding. It's even so now that I'm past the pain. My body is slowly adapting to this new lifestyle of just sanding every day, 10 hours straight. This is just, I'm forcing my body to just adapt. And yeah, I've been in a lot of pain, I can tell you that, but it's getting better now. Yeah, I know it's really hard to see through the camera, but now finally the starboard side of the hull is finished and ready for some base coat. The plan is to do the port side of the hull next week, so we get the same level of fairness on that side to sand away those patches that I applied a few days ago. I know that this type of work is really hard to get through the camera. The progress of the work, it's really hard to film any progress. But from our perspective, it's a huge difference now from what we started out with. And hopefully that will be easier to show later on once we have that base coat on, so you guys also can see that we're making any progress. But more about that next week. So thanks a lot for watching, and we hope to see you next Friday. Take care. Bye-bye.
If you enjoy our videos, we would really appreciate your support over on Patreon. And there we can stay in direct contact as well.